do some cool football theory stuff. So I'm going to start with like a basic formula that's from physics and calculus, which is position, is equal to acceleration times time squared, over 2, plus initial velocity times time plus initial position. So when you have like a combine, when you're scouting receivers, you say you find the acceleration of a player and you find the velocity. So acceleration is velocity 2 minus velocity 1 divided by 2. So this is average acceleration between these two velocities. So you could do average acceleration from 0 to 5 yards, and then from 5 to 10 yards, and then from 10 to 15, and you can kind of see how the acceleration progresses. The reality is the acceleration shouldn't change too much at the start. This change in acceleration would be smaller. As you get closer to maximum velocity, the change in acceleration would decrease, obviously. Right, so what you can say is, let's do 0 to 5 yards, and then you have initial velocity is 0, average acceleration from 0 to 5. You plug it in here, initial position, final position is 5 yards, so this becomes 5, this becomes 0. You solve for t. Okay, so let's say our X receiver, 0 to 5 yards is, I don't know, 0.8 seconds. And they're cornerback number 1, 0 to 5 yards is 0.7. So we know like any yards where this receiver runs less than 5 yards, this will be a favorable matchup. So what you do is you kind of game plan by using these like physics calculus formulas, and by calculating average acceleration as velocity 2 minus velocity 1 divided by 2. And then you set if you really want to be that serious, you can do average acceleration from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, to 4 to 5, to 6 to 7, etc. And you can go all the way to 40 yards, and you can have a pretty good graph of their acceleration, and you can even write a formula for the graph, that is a good estimate. Okay, so it's probably better to just have these specific values just plotted as points instead of having like an equation that is the estimate of the points. I think that would be more accurate. But if you really want to have an estimated equation, that's probably okay too. So the point is like, let's say what we find is that X from 10 to 15 is 1.8. Cornerback from 10 to 15 is 1.7. Okay, so what we do is we get our measuring stick, when we do a 15 yards, and then we do our little protractor, when we do a little circle, when we say this is the radius, like that, this is where this is a winning matchup. Okay, so what you have here, you pick a point, let's say this is the point, you have distance from X to this dot, and then you draw a line from the cornerback to be in a position to stop the ball, maybe something like this. So what you do is you measure this line, this distance, and you plug it in for X, and then you put in the time. The initial velocity of the cornerback in this case is 0. You learn the acceleration of the cornerback by filming their practice, and then you plug it in and you find the time for cornerback to reach this position. You find the time for X receiver to reach this position. And what you do is you continuously change this graph and you run in different directions until you find a point based on the position of this guy where it's impossible for him to stop the throw. And let's say that point is here. So what we're doing is we're doing a quick slant, and this guy, it is impossible for that cornerback, to stop the throw. So what will stop this quick slant? Okay, so this guy goes up into zone. He does like a zone right here. He can stop that throw. Okay, so what you have here is, it's kind of like a nickel, where this is like linebacker / defensive end. Right? These are like defensive tackle, like maybe defensive end, tackle, defensive end. And then you have like a power rushing linebacker. And then you have your, linebacker and linebacker maybe this is like a backup safety that comes up and does that position or something, and then what you say is in zone coverage, this guy, can drop back and stop this quick slant. Okay, in zone coverage, this guy cannot. He's not fast enough. So this is like automatic, 3-4 yards every time. This guy can't stop that throw. Right. So what you can do is you can say, well, let's motion this guy over here. And then this cornerback will be on the other side. So there's actually no one that can stop this. Okay, so what you do is you time the acceleration of this linebacker, and you say, if this guy goes straight across like that, can he stop the pass? So it's possible. So let's say it's possible. So this quarterback has read number 1. Quarterback has reads. Read number 1. Linebacker, let's say this is like Sam and this is Will. So linebacker Sam is read number 1. If linebacker Sam goes straight across the field, you can't throw the slant. Okay, here's the reality of the situation. If linebacker Sam goes straight across the field, I can just wait 2 more seconds, and then I'm behind him. So he can't turn around and chase me this way. So if linebacker Sam goes straight across, I wait another second, and then I throw behind him, before these guys can get to the route. Make sense? So, you have kind of progressions where you say read 1 is linebacker Sam. Okay, so like let's say there's a nightmare scenario where not only does the linebacker go straight across, the safety also comes forward. This throw is now impossible, so you just ignore X. You can't throw to X anymore. Okay, so what's your next progression? So what we have here is, kind of a situation where, you had to put this tight end over here and this receiver over here because you wanted to remove this guy from being able to get rid of this pass. So if you have like tight end over here, then this guy can drop into zone and pick you off. So you have to move the other receivers over to the other side. So what you have is if this happens, safety comes forward, Sam goes across, none of these guys can really punish that. Maybe if your tight end could come like up like that, but that's like a long route. It takes a long time. And once the safety realizes that you're not throwing the quick slant, he's probably just going to back up again. Right. So this is kind of like, if this safety comes forward, this throw is impossible. So you just have to check that off. So read 1 is linebacker Sam. Read 2 is strong safety. So these are the reads for the quarterback. Okay, so if none of that works, what's your next option? So this is why you have the cornerbacks in cover 2. They have like a flat route zone like this, where they sit kind of in this zone, because if this cornerback chases, then I have the halfback in the flat. So this cornerback has to stay here. He cannot go across the field. He has to stay here. Okay, so if you have zone cover, or if you have man-to-man, then the Sam is one-on-one with the halfback, and the Sam would follow him across the field, and that would get rid of the problem. Okay, so like this progression for the quick slant is read linebacker, read safety, movement. Okay, so let's say if this Sam goes across, we know that any route less than like 8 yards, you know, because this safety could come forward, but that's suicide because then the Z is going to just come behind him. So the safety can't really move forward unless the cornerback is like just the best cornerback ever in the league. Okay, so if this is like the greatest ever, then it gets more difficult because this guy can read up on this like tight end cross and like coming in. Okay, but if let's say Sam goes over, safety comes forward, what that means is you have one-on-one will linebacker tight end. So this becomes a very good option. So tight end is like the third read, you know, is will tight end. So the third read would be tight end. So if these guys both go in to stop this quick slant, so if this guy goes in, you throw the slant behind him if he goes straight across. If the safety comes up to get rid of the second throw, you go tight end. Right? So what's a route that is very difficult for this will to get rid of or to cover in one-on-one against a tight end? So it's like maybe like a corner route or maybe like an out or even like a flat route. Okay, this flat route would take too long. By the time I got through both of these reads, he's in the sidelines already. Okay, so probably the better route is like an out. So I go read here. By the time this guy's there, you know, the tight end is maybe to here. So the next danger, you know, the fourth read is maybe you're sacked. Maybe the fourth read is the corner coming forward to cover the flats for the tight end. So the fourth read is cornerback 2. So if cornerback 2 comes up, you know, you throw the go to the Z. Okay, so maybe fifth read is is this safety in position to stop the go? So like fifth read is like free safety. Okay, so if everything happens like safety comes here or safety comes forward, Sam goes over here, cornerback, you know, has a zone that stops this tight end. So like if the cornerback has a flat zone, so it could be like an option where if the cornerback has a flat zone, the tight end goes corner. If the cornerback has a deep zone, the tight end goes cross. So that's like the fourth read is like cornerback 2/tight end. Right. So like the next read would be, you know, this would be another option maybe for the Z. If cornerback has a deep route, you know, you just have like a curl. But again, like by the time you get through all these progressions, so maybe the better option would be either a post or like a fly. So if the free safety has a zone, if we're cover 2 and this safety is just insane and read forward to cover the slant because he saw that the X running the slant and he's smart enough to know that the tight end can't get behind him, he's too slow, so you know I can come forward on the slant to cover the slant. So then, you know, the next read is free safety slash Z option. Okay, the sixth read is probably just like run. You know, that's probably it at that point. Okay, so you give kind of like a basic progression. So if safety comes this way, the Z goes post. Okay, if safety kind of holds here, you know, the Z goes like this, and you throw over the top. So if the cornerback comes forward and the safety kind of has a zone like a cover 2, you know, then you either have tight end post, you know, or you have Z on the go. So that's kind of just like a basic play. This might be like a, you know, and you could even have, you know, off the back of it, you could even have like a halfback, you know, coming in like this. You know, but like by the time you get through all these progressions, the halfback should probably just block the rush and then maybe like go into the flat if this whole play falls apart, you know, or like go into this flat if the whole play falls apart. So what's really important is that this cornerback doesn't chase across the field and he trusts that the safety, you know, can come cover this, anything like that. And this free safety can also, you know, so there's another danger where if this guy gets to the middle of the field and the safety comes out here, you know, that's another read that you could have. So if safety goes corner, you might just have this guy on a cross across the middle. But then, this Will could like come for a deep zone or something. So you could kind of include that in this read, you know, or if Will backs up, this tight end can probably just curl route. So this is like even a triple option. If you have someone smart enough to read the Will and this cornerback at the same time, but that all gets pretty intense in terms of, so like you can see that there's like a very high skill cap to the game, where you have the tight end option, the Z option. But the issue is if this tight end is on the curl and he like quarterback says, Will this deep zone, you should curl. And then tight end says, oh, but corner is cover 3, safety's coming to cover this side, so I should do the out. So the Will goes here and the corner goes here, so the quick out is the obvious option, but they're both potential. They're both correct. So both options are correct in that case. So it's just like if the quarterback reads curl and the tight end goes out, then it could go bad. So like having that many options is kind of crazy. So what you'd have to say is, which read takes precedence. Okay, so can the tight end read both at the same time? So the reality is you have to remove either this option or this option, because if you have 3 options, and there's a situation where both options are a good route, and maybe the safety can't, or the tight end can't read Will and cornerback at the same time. So the quarterback reads corner and corner is deep, so it's a quick out. But tight end reads Will and Will is deep, so it's a curl. Right? So it's like, which one do you throw? Because they both read the other player. So you probably have to remove one of these reads, right? Where you just have to ignore, the tight end just has to ignore Will and only act based on the cornerback, or the tight end, because, these 2 routes are both having to do with the corner going forward or backwards. So to ask this guy to read both corner and Will is pretty intense. There'd be a lot of confusion and the potential for things to go very badly.